Today's ceremony is special because we're inducting 3 deserving people into our Hall of Fame for their achievement and dedication they gave to the Rock County community. And when we celebrate achievement, it's really easy to see all the outcomes on where things are today. Things change, and when look at the road that it took to get to that change, it's not always straight, and sometimes it feels like it is when we look at just the outcomes. Life's road is full of left turns and right turns, uphill climbs and downhill falls. But what's important to remember is that we all eventually get there as long as we keep the car moving. It is so easy sometimes to give up on a project before it's complete, or it got hard. Or the fact that it never looked like it was ever done that way before. The fact that JPAC exists today is because some people thought it could happen. And there were a lot of people that didn't think it could, but they kept pushing and they kept talking about why it was good for our community. When we look at how we're inducting people, you'll see all 3 people have helped blaze and create their own paths here for our community, and that's why they're here. So if you look at your neighbors and your friends, some are here tonight, some are at home, some living in different parts of the country and world, we want to assume that it's so easy for them every day, but it's not. It can be hard, it can be tedious, but it also can be fun, and it can be a learning experience, and it can be something that helps us see the world differently. So thanks so much for all those being inducted tonight, for helping us see the world differently here. It is our duty to shape the future for the next generation of artists. You all did this. You were all courageous. You all worked very hard. Thank you, and we love you. After the Hall of Fame tonight, I want to let everybody know we've got the band Foreign Natives who's joining us to help celebrate, so we hope you can stay for that, and it should be just a really, really nice night. So without further ado, I'm going to bring up the person who's going to be introducing our first inductee. If Sarah Hodge would come up to the podium. Sarah is going to be inducting Jim McCulloch, introducing Jim McCulloch.
Being on a stage with all of the performing arts community in front of me. It's kind of a tough crowd, but no pressure. Also, I tried to get information out of Jim, and I said if he didn't send me information, I would make things up. So if some of this seems out of place, it's because of Jim. So my name is Sarah Hodge. Thank you, Nathan, for the nice introduction. It's been my pleasure to serve on the JPAC board for the last 7 years. Much of this time I spent in the pandemonium, sparkle, and the wonderlands created by Jim. When Nathan first introduced me to Jim and his uncanny ability never to forget a face, Jim mentioned our paths crossed at the Rock County 4-H Fair 40 years ago. There remains a small discrepancy as to who exhibited the best vegetables, but tonight is Jim's night, so I will let that go. Jim is a dairy farm kid from Whitewater. He started off as most amazing performing artists do in 4-H, the Lima 4-H Drama Club. He participated at the club and county level for 11 years. He served as a leader for 8 years for the club, as a chairman, produced and directed club plays, judged the Rock County Drama Festival, and then Jim was off. His love of the performing arts followed him to college at the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater. He graduated with a Bachelor of Fine Arts and was part of the Young Scholars Program as an instructor for children that was held on campus. Jim was the first student director to tour elementary schools as part of the theater dance program. In 2001 and 2003, Jim participated as an artist in residency who directed Cinderella and Charlotte Web children's tours. Jim served as executive director for Stage 1 from 1992 to 1993, where he produced and directed 2 seasons, including musicals, children's, and community plays at UW-Rock County. Throughout his 25 years in the arts, Jim has hosted school residencies and after-school programs and taught dramatic workshops in various educational and community settings. Places like Orfordville Parkville Elementary School, the Milton area schools, local schools in Janesville, and again in Whitewater. Over his 7 years at the Performing Arts Center, Jim served as project manager for all JPAC produced programming. Together, Jim and Nathan started the JPAC Kids Summer Program. The camp impacts 90 kids annually with over 1,500 patrons enjoying the summer shows. Jim taught classes to over 200 students at JPAC and helped the PAC double its annual impact. While at JPAC, Jim was responsible for youth programming productions, 2 main stage reviews, 1 summer musical, 1 full-length play, and the Music and Drama Festival. In addition, Jim produced adult programming, created a strategic plan for annual matinee series for area schools and homeschool groups. And as if Jim is never busy enough, Jim and his wife Karen founded Royal Oak Productions in 1996, a for-profit theater company specializing in children's theater, classes, workshops, audience participation, murder mysteries for public and private events. Certainly Jim's resume and the positions he has held are impressive, but it's my feeling that Jim's sincere desire to see young students grow and gain confidence is really why he is deserving of this award tonight. Jim is emblematic of art for art's sake. He sees inherent value independent of the outside noise. Jim believes in kids and their ability to be anyone, an ogre, a perpetually late rabbit, or a mean queen. He asks people to suspend disbelief and subscribe to the notion that anything is possible. Creating a safe place for kids to take risks and gain confidence is really what he's all about. Jim is a genuine force for all things good and creative. His positivity, wit, and humor is contagious. He easily creates relationships with students, parents, and community members to provide incredible experiences. Jim sees the potential in people. He raises the bar and gives students tools to surpass it. Jim is the individual you call when you have an idea. When you need help building something, raising funds, supporting community initiatives, or empowering students. Jim shows up with his electric drill, an unmatched, optimistic spirit, and a twinkle in his eye. As a freelance artist and self-employed business entrepreneur for over 25 years, Jim remains dedicated to writing, producing, and directing children's theater. He is incredibly dedicated and proud of the life he has built with his wife, Karen, and his 3 incredible children. Jim's life trajectory has once again returned him to his hometown. He currently serves as the Whitewater Unified School District Theater Director and Director and Advisor for the Whitewater High School Players. He inspires and elevates more students to the next level. Please join me in a hearty round of applause for a creative force of nature, Jim McCulloch. Thank you.
All right, how can I follow that? The jokes weren't that bad, Sarah. I appreciate the, the words. I really do. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be back on this stage again. I'd like to first of all thank Sarah for the wonderful warm words. Sarah was like my rock down here for these 7 years. She helped me out a lot. She did a lot of work behind the scenes. We got into a lot of trouble with our SOTUS conferences we had from time to time, but always with a smile, always with a positive attitude, and always with a vision in mind. So I thank her very much for a lot of my success in the children's program down here. So I'm going to give the thanks to her. Give her a round of applause. I'd also like to thank the Rock County Arts Alliance for this honor. I am honored in this. I've been doing a lot of work since I was a young kid. Gosh, you pretty much ran down my resume. I don't think I need to read it over for you again. I got my first break when I was in 2nd grade. I was Santa Claus. A 50-pound scrawny little kid that they stuffed with 4 pillows to be Santa Claus. And it worked. I got bit by the bug. I did 4-H drama. I went on to do high school drama, middle school drama, and then went off into college. And it's weird, I just had a conversation with my son last night saying, if you can find a way to get paid for something you love to do, do it. I've done that for almost 30 years. Have I gotten rich doing it? No, but there's a lot more to life than money. JPAC, 7 years down here with Nathan, with Mike, Alexis, Carrie, Amanda, Justin, all the friends I've made down here, Vicky, Edie, all of the teaching instructors, the people that I've worked with have really helped to make me shine, and I wouldn't be up here without any of them. They helped a lot, and I really do appreciate everyone for what they did to help the success of JPAC and of the Education Outreach Program, which I am deeply proud of. And Susie, I know you're going to do a fantastic job with it, just from what I've seen you've done so far. So I think JPAC has a very bright future. I think Rock County has an incredibly bright future. Janesville is an incredible place. It's not my hometown. It's hard being a hometown boy from Whitewater, coming down here and trying to start over. Everyone was very welcoming. I appreciate the friendships, the relationships that I forged while I was down here. Even when I was down here back doing stage 1 out of UROC. It was a great experience, and I just want to say that the talent pool in this community, in this region, is amazing. I don't really think you realize how much talent lies within these city limits. And I've worked with a lot of kids from a lot of different schools, from a lot of different backgrounds, and it really is true. There are so many opportunities for kids down here that weren't here when I was a kid. We didn't have all of these things. Now you've got Parker Arts Academy, you've got Spotlight on Kids, you've got JPAC, you have so many different organizations, and they're all here for one purpose. It's to raise the awareness of arts in the community for kids. Kids are going to need the arts, especially now after the pandemic. Kids need this. They need this creative outlet. We need a creative outlet. So I think the arts have a really strong future in general, but in Rock County in particular, cherish what you have, because you have a treasure down here. I miss it deeply. I hope to get back down here sometime in the near future to work with these kids again. It's wonderful seeing these kids. I go to some of the performances that they're in right now, and I see them, and I still see these little kids. Jimmy Hodge, I'm going to say right now, he's grown so tall. He used to be this tall and a little short and squat. Now, it's amazing to see how these kids have changed and how they've grown, not only academically, but artistically and just as general human beings. They're fantastic. And I encourage you, and I challenge you to maintain those opportunities for these kids, because it's important. It's important for a variety of things. Most of these kids won't go into the arts as adults, but they'll at least have that experience of knowing what it's like to get up in front of people and be able to speak confidently. And that is very important going into life. Lastly, I would like to thank my family. They're sitting out here. My wife Karen, my daughter Mara, my sons Ben and Elliot, for all of the hours that I wasn't with you. Down here, being with other kids, being with other families. It didn't mean I didn't love you. I just had other things to do, and I know you appreciated that, and I know you understood. And it was great that you also were able to work with me on some of these projects. And I love you all very much. And thank you. So without saying any more, I thank you for this honor. I really do appreciate everything that has been done for me down here, and everything that we can do together for the arts and the community of Rock County and JPAC in particular. So thank you very much for this honor. Thank you.
Yeah, another big round of applause for Jim. The amount of work that he did for us is just phenomenal. So, very, very well deserved. I would like to take a second to transition over to our next inductee, who is going to be inducted tonight. And he is a person that made a lot of decisions and was able to do a lot of things in making JPAC happen here today. Introducing him is going to be Sue Conley, so if Sue Conley could come up here to the stage, that would be wonderful. Jim Thorpe, I have the privilege of him being on my board of directors as an ex officio, and I will say that Jim, the belief he has in everybody here and what JPAC can still continue being, not just what it was or the original idea was, is phenomenal, and it pushes me every single day, so big thanks to him on that. So, without further ado, Sue Conley.
Good evening, everyone. So Jim, you're talking about kids and all the work you did with kids. I remember watching this kid on stage so many years ago, Spotlight on Kids, Craig High School. And here he is back in Janesville. You know, isn't that great? Yeah, love it. Jim called me to ask me to introduce him tonight, and it's really a great honor for me to do so. And I was trying to remember when I first met Jim. And I'm not sure. I think I met Roz first, because I was probably one of the youngest season ticket holders to the Janesville Concert Association. That was a long time ago. Jim was very active in that as well, but I think Roz was at the table, right, where you did everything when you came in the door. And I met Jim next. It might have been in the 90s when the YWCA, where I worked, and Jim Trop and Theater Unlimited created multiple musical theater performances as a revenue stream for the YWCA. Jim and Roz were huge supporters of that way back in the day. And they would come to all of our shows, and they would stay later and tell us how wonderful they all were. So we were really grateful to them for that. And then in the late 90s, early 2000s, JPAC was imagined. It was imagined as a home for local community arts groups. And there were so many of us. Theater Unlimited, the Concert Association, BJSO, Spotlight on Kids, Stage One, Janesville Little Theater. I'm sure there are more. And the vision at the time was that all these groups could come together and create a home for all of them, and perhaps even govern it, right? They created an event where we all came together to share our input. And I think Jim was probably the first one to realize that the vision that they had for this wonderful arts home needed to adjust. And if you know Jim at all, you've probably heard him say this, that arts groups will eat their young to protect what they have. He's not wrong, right? All of these groups needed a venue, right? We were all scurrying around trying to find venues. Sometimes it was a school, it was URock, it was Franklin, Parker, Craig. They also were competing for resources. They needed sponsors and people to volunteer. And so when you brought them all in the same room, they were a little hesitant to share what they had worked so hard to build and develop. And so I think Jim realized that early on in the process. And they took a step back and they re-envisioned what JPAC could be. And we're here today, right? And I think we're here today in large part because of Jim Thorpe. Jim had the legal know-how and the personal demeanor to work with Stonehouse and Helen Bradbury to bring this all to fruition. So without Jim's really hard work and vision, we might not be here today. So I think we're all grateful, Jim, for all that you did to create JPAC in a structure that has worked for a long time. Jim's been on the board, I think, since the very beginning. He still serves as an ex officio member. And back in 2008, who remembers 2008? General Motors left, the housing market fell apart, we were all in recession. Janesville was kind of sad. People didn't come to the theater. And JPAC noticed that, right? I mean, people weren't coming here as much. And one day, in 2009, Jim Thorpe called me and he said, "Sue, I have an idea." And I thought, oh boy, here we go. Jim said, what if we start a new theater group that works in conjunction with JPAC and helps bring in excellent, high-quality theater that people will come to at a cost they can afford. And so Bowers City Theater was started with Jim and I, basically, and we hired Jim Trop to come in as the artistic director, and we put on some pretty fabulous shows for about 3 years. We did all kinds of different shows. We did White Christmas, which was a huge production and a great sellout. We did Avenue Q, we did Rent, we did Jekyll and Hyde, just lots of really interesting and fun musicals. And it really did help JPAC's bottom line, which was the goal. Not only did we want to provide high quality musical theater, but we wanted to help JPAC as well. Jim's always thinking about what's best for JPAC. Even today, he's got new ideas. So if he knocks on your door and says, I have an idea, you might be in for a lot of work, but it might work out really well. Jim has shared many ideas with our community in many different organizations beyond JPAC. He's been active with Can Do, he's been active with the Humane Society, and probably many others that I'm unaware of. He is constantly working for the betterment of our community. And I think that we are all better off because Jim Thorpe always has another idea. So congratulations, Jim. Thank you so much for all you've done for JPAC and the arts community over all these years. We are very glad that you chose Janesville for all of your ideas.
I'm not used to this kind of light, or I can't see anybody. I like to see who I'm talking to. But it is what it is. I've got a few notes, so I won't wander on too long. First, I want to thank everybody for honoring me. I really do appreciate it. And it is something that I am proud of. I think what may be of interest to many of you is to explain a little bit about the process that I was involved in the process of working with a lot of people to create JPAC. After law school, and a couple of 3 years in Madison doing tax research, we moved to Janesville. I took a position with then the Nolan, Moed, Lovejoy, McGuire, and Wood law firm. In the process of that, a couple of people were really extremely helpful to me. One was Hy Nolan, who was a local boy, born and raised in Janesville, born about 1901, Harvard Law School graduate, and a pillar of the legal community. And he was very, very helpful. One of the things he got me involved in was the Janesville Concert Association. And those of you that don't know much about it, I hope that the history of that soon can be made more public. It was an association of people who put on shows going back into the teens, 20s, 30s, 40s. You got to remember there were days when there wasn't television and entertainment was very limited. And when you had the ability to bring in an out-of-town professional group, it was very, very well received. A lot of those performances happened right here in this particular theater. Then another person that was very important to me was John McGuire, who was a lawyer in the firm. He taught me to aim for a win-win result when working with clients or anybody, and not a typical win-lose scenario that you get with a lot of lawyers. John and I agreed on an awful lot of things, but we really didn't agree on what was important. And that's another story, but I could never get overly involved in trying to figure out how to make the most money I could. I was with the firm for 35 years, and in the process, ended up being very involved in building the new building that Nolan Law Firm still occupies on north of here. For you that don't remember what was there before, it was two large factory buildings, an ice cream factory, and a gas station. It was a terrible, terrible rundown part of the town, and I think that still is probably the biggest urban renewal project in downtown Janesville. There are pictures of that around, but excuse me just 1 second here. I'm sorry, but it is winter out. In any event, there are pictures of that what the block used to look like. And Tim Lindahl has told me that anybody that was interested could go down to the firm, and they do now have some of the pictures framed of what that block looked like before we made a deal with the city. We traded our old office buildings for that whole block, tore down, and then we built a new building there. Then about 20 years ago, I left the firm and started Carney Thorpe out in North Pontiac. We built another building, and that's where I've been officed since. For over 50 years, I've had the opportunity to work with many clients, and we've done a ton of different projects, most of which I'm really not at ability to talk about because of client relationships, but there was a lot of them, and it taught me very much that I really enjoyed building things, making things happen. And I figured out that I could actually work with people and get a lot of things done. And I have figured out what's really most important. It's our family, our friends, our clients, and many of the organizations that I've worked with. And there are some people here tonight, but I want to mention three of the organizations that still are here, and they're very, very strong and doing a lot of good for the community. The Janesville Community Daycare Center, we started about 53 or 54 years ago. A guy by the name of Lynn Wood had a preschool that some of you may remember, and she was very concerned there was no place for kids to be properly cared for while their parents were working. So that was created, and that's been a very successful program. Teresa Marshall, who heads it up now, told me just the other day that they're approaching having served 10,000 kids in their program since its inception, which I think is kind of remarkable for Janesville. Excuse me, I've done a lot of work with Can Do, been involved ever since the first building on Adele Street, and then been involved with the foundation and still involved with doing some things, and that organization is doing well. I've done a lot of work with the Humane Society. I was on the board many years ago, and then recently on the board in the last few years, wherein we sold the old building, we bought land down on G and built a new Humane Society building, which was open this summer. And I would encourage you, any of you who have not seen it or not aware of it, to take a look at it. It's quite an asset for the community. And the Humane Society is an organization that it would be, you would really not miss it if it didn't exist. It does a lot of good things. Recently, I've been working with the Boy Scouts, representing them in selling Camp Indian trails to the County of Rock. And the County of Rock now is in the process of making that into the premier county park in Rock County, and you'll hear a lot more about it. It's over 200 acres out on the river, and it's now going to be available to all kinds of groups, school groups, church groups, all kinds of kids and people. Last year, our law firm was waning a bit and not knowing exactly what to do. I got together with Buck Sweeney, and we brought the Axley firm to Janesville, and that will have an impact over the years that will be felt. It's a large firm, 75 lawyers or so out of Madison, and to have all of those specialties available right here in Janesville, I think will be a very positive thing. Anyway, I've always been involved with community projects. The need in the community for a performing arts center grew out of Janesville Concert Association, which I talked briefly about. It was an incredible organization, and I hope the history of it is soon published. What they did was have a terrible time trying to find a place to have their performances. They were constantly battling with the school system for space, this space, and then Craig High School, and there were a lot of people involved in the school system that felt that the Concert Association was a major interference with their space, and it showed. So I was aware of the problems of the theater and the need for a community theater. And at the suggestion of a good friend of mine, Attorney Joe Melly in Madison, one of his lawyers' wife, Helen Bradbury, was attempting to buy Marshall, and I represented her, went to the school board, and as a result of that meeting, we were able to have the building sold to Helen, who owned it up until just very, very recently. And what she did is that we had talked about making the theater here and the music wing available for a community theater, and she was very much thinking that was a great idea, but quite frankly didn't want a lot to do with it personally, and so what she did was to authorize me to try to do something to put the program together. After about 5 years in 2 organizations, the first organization we did, we worked with a number of people, and it just didn't work out. JPAC really was the second organization that we created. And when we built the facility here, one of the things that is kind of interesting, to me at least, is that we never had a box office in the original plans for this building. The reason is that Janesville Consulate Association always sold about 1,100 tickets. They did it all at one time. It was season tickets, and it's the only way you could go to any of their shows was to buy season tickets. Fortunately, we woke up and put a box office in here. A lot of people have been involved in the community, way too many to mention. A few people are really, really key. One is Jane Blaine Gilbertson and Dr. Harvey Turner, who was a local dentist. Jane got a confidential investor to contribute $1 million to the project if the city would contribute $1 million. You can imagine the havoc that caused. The city did finally concede and agreed to give us $1 million. And then we got the $1 million, which really facilitated the building process going ahead. The city ultimately ended up kind of playing a little game, but they spent the $1 million building us a parking lot outside the building, which was entirely for only the purpose for JPAC. And they agreed to maintain it, and that's constantly something that the JPAC has to keep an eye on, because a lot of people think it's a public parking lot, which it is not. After about 20 years, I've been working with Jane, trying to get the original contributor of the $1 million to reveal who they are so that we could possibly thank them. Without that, that was really the thing that got this going. There was a lot of work done, or a lot of organizational work, a lot of planning, but it takes money. And it was that $1 million that made this go in the first instance, and we don't even know who they are, which I think is too bad. Awful lot of people were involved. I would be remiss if I did not mention Catherine Hagan. Catherine Hagan was the executive for Janesville Consulate Association, and was in fact the first executive director for JPAC. Catherine is in her 90s, lives up in near Minneapolis. I talked to her today, and she sends her greetings to everybody who might remember her. It's been a long-term dream of many that JPAC have its own facility, not just rent. This facility is not owned by JPAC, it's rented. A home for the performing arts is what in many respects distinguishes Janesville from many other communities. And there's a lot of people who like to have this building really partially owned by JPAC. And I think that's possible. The board has been looking at the idea of working with the current owner to condo the building so that JPAC could actually own its portion. The JPAC staff and the board are really very, very good, and they're well suited to carry a JPAC on into the future. I would, however, warn them, it will always be a job. There's nothing automatic. It's got to have people that are on top of the scene and really trying to make sure that everything works. Any organization like JPAC can fail in a very short period of time. Fortunately, we have a very strong board, and Nate of course, is really excellent. I think he's, without question, he's the very best executive director we've had here. Anyway, I do thank everybody involved for the recognition that I'm being given here, and I do appreciate it very much. And I had to keep to my notes because I could tell you more about this building. I could go on for hours. I could point out such things as this building was without electricity. That's why you have windows, and all of the windows up there that are now blacked out were all daylight. And there is above all of these windows another story with another whole row of windows. So it's an incredible building. It's an early burlesque theater. There are, up on the side, up in the back here, there are music venue or music places for musicians or musicians. So that played back way up, and the music came out over the theater and supported what was ever going on at the theater level here. Anyway, that's all I have to say, and I thank you all very much. I appreciate it.
Another big round of applause for Jim Ford. So another big thank you on behalf of the arts here in Rock County. Our final inductee this evening is someone who is very special to us. This is in memory of him. I've asked Janesville Little Theater representative Steve Shaw to make an introduction for Rick's wife. Rick is no longer with us, and so we've asked Shelley to accept on behalf of him. I know him as Bartender Rick. There was a lot of times where I had a really bad day, and I came in and that guy just looked at me and was like, "Hey boss, how you doing?" And he was just so jolly that I was like, how am I supposed to have a bad day when I'm working with this guy all the time? And so I'm sure there's going to be lots of other stories like that, but Rick was special because he crossed sports with theater and worked with many different organizations. He just wasn't part of JPAC. He did a lot for Janesville Little Theater and the community as a whole. So without further ado, let's bring up Steve Shaw to introduce our final inductee.
I didn't plan anything before I came here tonight because I'm talking about my friend Rick, who he should be standing right here. He was always there for me when I came in to the theater downstairs. And like Nathan said, it was always, "Hey boss, how you doing tonight?" Every time. That was Rick. I met Rick 10 plus years ago when some friends, mutual friends, brought him to Janesville Little Theater. He'd been involved in starting the Renaissance Fair downtown in Janesville, and they were involved in it. But he wanted to become involved in the theater. He wanted to be on our board too. And every time I asked Rick for something, the answer was yes. I think he'd have been a great improv person for that reason. It's very hard to remember coming in here and not having that smiling face and that problem solver and that guy that was always there for you. It seems funny when you think about it that he just did shows, but he didn't just do shows. He did dress rehearsals. He did planning. If there was a question that you had and you didn't have the answer to it, how would I do that? How can I get this done for me? I got it, boss. I'll take care of it. We had a situation one time in a show where at our intermission, a computer puked. Now that's kind of serious if you're in the middle of a show and you make it to intermission, but everything's gone for the the second half of the show. Rick ran home, got another computer. He had it all set up. It was ready. That was Rick. He was always ready. I really miss Rick. I wish he was still here. And I'm sure that I don't miss him near as much as his family. Rick was one of those people that, when he saw a need, he was there for you. He was just the best guy I think I ever worked with. Not that I haven't worked with some great people, I have, but not as consistent, not as always welcoming, always friendly, and always willing to help. And we had a running joke. When I would come in, the only reason he would work for me is because I give him candy and beef sticks. Not true at all, of course, but that was Rick. You know, he just wanted to play and have a good time, and he was always smiling. I never saw Rick in a bad mood. I don't know if anybody saw Rick in a bad mood. Really don't. He just wasn't that kind of a guy, you know? So that's about all I had to say. I just wanted to represent my friend Rick, and I'd like to introduce his wife, Shelley, and she'll be accepting the award for him posthumously. Thanks for having me.
I wasn't going to say anything. I normally would bring my emotional support animal, but she doesn't behave, so I brought emotional support friends. Wow. I've known about this night for a couple of months, and every time I think about it, it makes me cry, and I know that Rick would be like saying, I don't deserve that, especially with the people that he is being inducted with. You gentlemen have done so much, and Rick would say that he ran a computer and served drinks, and he wouldn't have seen the value of that. And what we have learned since, in the last 18 months since he passed, is that he just never saw his own value, and I'm so glad that other people have taken time to see what he would never have admitted about himself. Staying up till 2 in the morning, and when I come downstairs to find what he's doing, he's finding that perfect sound bite for the cue he's got to do, and how am I going to make a phone ring at the same time as music has to play. And he loved the people that he met when he was bartending, all the famous people who would come and tell me, I got to wear a Super Bowl ring, things like that. So he loved spending time here, he loved being involved in the theater. And anyway, thank you very much for considering him a part of your community.
Yes, one more big round of applause for Rick and his family. So that will conclude our ceremony. I do want to let you know that we're very thankful for all of you being here tonight. We've lots of great stuff going on. December was our busiest month in the history of the PAC, where we impacted over 7,500 people in just the month of December. And we closed after only 3 weeks of December. So as this snowball continues to roll, we'll always need more leaders to step up. And I want you to know just like these three people came and told you everything that they were able to accomplish. The door will always be open for new ideas and new people to come to our table. And if you're artistic and you have ideas, or you are a lawyer and you have ideas, or you are a server and you have ideas, or you're a wrestling coach and you have ideas, or you like football and want to eat Cheetos all day and have ideas, we'll listen. Because we represent the community, and if there's enough echoes and enough ideas that we think are achievable, it'd be wrong for us to not look at it. Over the past few years, we've been able to accomplish so much, and it's with all these people's help. There was a time where there was no venue that was dedicated to resident groups. So they're performing in miscellaneous nomadic locations, and this place exists today. Today we do plays about homelessness and mental health. These are like real issues that we need to talk about and address in our community. And we also provide lots of entertainment, where we have Buddy the Elf come and do dances up here. And we do really great little plays down in our gallery in our black box, and it takes a whole community to do that. It's not just one person. So if you have ideas and you have somebody that's always talking about like how they have ideas and want to do things artistically, our door is always open, and we invite you to come to our table because we will always be open to you. So we also like you to come and see our stuff. So if you have the desire to see more programs, take a look at our website, which is www.janesvillepac.org. And if you have any ideas of people that you'd like to be nominated and be considered for the future, you can email me at nathan@janesvillepac.org. It's on the website if you want to see that too. Just one last reminder, there's ways to give to JPAC during the year. You can give to our Arts Angels campaign. That basically helps support about 10% of our operating costs for the year. As our facility continues to grow, that goes up and up and up every year. This year we have a goal of $65,000. Just for scale, it was about $48,000 back in 2016. So you can see how our budget size has grown if you want to do the math. I've got my graphing calculator, and I'm not playing Word. But we also have our gala coming up on May 6th if you want to attend the show with Gym Blossoms coming up, and that's a good way to support JPAC too. So big thanks again. We're going to take a brief break, and then when we all come back, we will see our great band, Foreign Natives. So thank you very much. Have a good night.